Hey everyone, Tim Burris here, and today I'm going to talk about why I'm happy that I ditched my 2 and 3 monitor setup and went to a single ultra-wide monitor setup purely from the software development side of things. So this is my setup as it was for many years. I had 3 monitors. I thought it was a pretty good setup, but what I really wanted was to be able to dedicate more of my overall real estate to my code editor. I spend almost all of my working day in my code editor writing code, and I wanted to see more code and have less of it dedicated to things like email or browser or whatever you have going on. And it's hard to do when you have the monitor split and you have that bezel. Most of it comes down to the bezels in between. It really disconnects everything. And so when you go with a single ultra-wide monitor setup like this, I got the Phillips, but there's a lot of options out there. I'll talk about the Phillips a little bit later. But the single setup lets you dedicate as much or as little real estate to whichever apps and programs that you want. So here's how I have mine set up. So I have my code in the middle, taking up a huge section of the real estate, overall real estate. On the left, I have my browser where I get all of my code from, which is Stack Overflow. I don't actually write any of it. Just go here, look up what you need, copy, paste it into here, and then just move on. That's really all you have to do. And then over on the right, so you have your code in the middle, and on the right-hand side is usually like my user interface. So for this, if it's a web application, I'll have the web browser that's running it right here. I might have my Android or iOS simulator over there, or if it's a WPF application, then that guy will be chilling over there. So the setup lets me give plenty of room. This is more than enough to do my day-to-day work on the browser. If I need a little bit more, let's say I've pulled up my DevTools and I'm really trying to dig in here, and just like any monitor, you just make it a little bit bigger. No big deal. But the focus is on the code here. This is enough room that anytime I want, if I just decide I'm doing some UI, I can easily just see my view model and my user interface side by side. That's almost impossible to do on a single monitor. I guess I shouldn't say impossible. You can start collapsing all these panels and really minimize your usage, and you can make it happen. But it's kind of a pain. And then sometimes when I'm doing a lot of API work and a lot of client-side work, I might even switch this up and say, I'm going to run 2 code editors side by side. And so, I have a little zone set up for that. And then that way, side by side, I can have my API over here. This is not an API, but pretend like it's an API. API over here, client over here, and then I might move my user interface over to this side if I'm doing that, or what have you. So plenty of room, no bezels. Let you set these up side by side. You can still see everything, and it's beautiful. And just for reference, so let's switch this guy back to my normal setup here, and we'll move this guy back over here. And let's go ahead and show side by side here again. So this is how it looks on ultra-wide. Now, if we switch this to be, I set up a zone here that would look like if you had this on a single monitor. So this block in the middle is what you would be looking at on a regular 1920 by 1080 monitor. This is how much you would see. All this would not be here. Look at all this junk. It would just be, it's just this. You can see the code, but it's not easy to work with. Then you have to collapse your Solution Explorer or whatever. It just doesn't work that great. So outside of coding, there was, I guess related to software development, there's some other really good advantages to this single monitor besides just your IDE. And one of them is just viewing really large Excel files. This is what this Excel file looks like. The client sends you an Excel file like, hey, I really need you to get this into the application, blah, blah. And you start looking, you're like, oh my goodness, look at all these columns. Ugh, pain. You're trying to compare the columns. It's nice for those edge cases when they send you 100 million columns. you can just full screen and you can see everything all at once. You can get your answer, whatever you're looking for, and then you can put it back. I know you can do this on a multi-monitor setup. The bezel disconnects everything. It just doesn't seem to work as well for me. Just being able to double click, full screen, see all my columns. That's what I really love about this setup. So Excel files, the same thing for large database diagrams. So if I were looking at this on a regular 1920 monitor, this is what I'm going to see out of this database diagram. I mean that's pretty good, but it's nice for those times when you just need to, for short term, just view it all, or view a lot of it. Just maximize. You can kind of get the whole picture of what you're looking for, and then you can put it back wherever when you're done with it. And another example of those edge case type things is log files. So let's open up a log file. This is what you normally open up your log file, and it's got your stack trace in there. And you're like, okay, let's see. So this guy, timeout exception. You're gonna scroll over to not, okay, 20-second limit. All right, good. You're not looking for that. You're constantly scrolling. Okay, no, scroll back. But for this short term, just make it either full screen or even just just drag it out a little bit until you find the one you're looking for. Again, I know you can get this done on a multi-monitor setup. You can drag it across to the other monitor, but it's just so disconnected. It's so simple to do this. And yeah, you don't do this every single day, but when you need to, or when it's handy, it's really convenient. So that's what I really like about the ultra-wide monitor. There are some things that either took some getting used to or still take some getting used to. So let's switch us back to what we normally are looking at. And one thing is, a lot of times during the day, I like to have maybe something from Microsoft Channel 9 playing a training video or something like that, playing. I used to play it on my third monitor and just full screen that video and let it play. But now you can't really full screen, things, because it's going to be full screen. You don't really want it full screen. You sort of just want it, taking up a lot of space, but not all of it. The problem is, when you go to one of these training sites, and you look for something, very important, so that you can watch it while you're working. You can't make that full screen, and maybe theater mode is big enough for you, but this probably took me the longest to get used to, is not being able to just maximize videos on a second or third monitor while I continued to work. Now I'm over it, but for sure I struggled to get used to that for quite a little while. The next kind of difficult thing to get used to was the start menu at the bottom. It's not an issue with Windows 11 anymore, but previously when I was on Windows 10, everything's on the left side. And right now I have a lot of things open just for this demo, but I typically wouldn't have this much junk open. And the start menu is all the way over there. The programs you open first, which are usually the ones you need the most, are all the way over there. It just seemed like a hassle, but now with 11 and it automatically centering your task bar at the bottom, that's been a pretty nice advancement. And in fact, it was pretty much the only reason that I went to Windows 11. Well, that, and I thought this snap technology was going to be great, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be, because you can't you can't customize it. These are the sizes you get, and every time you snap a window, it resorts back. So even if you do this like this and here, that's the size you get, and then you decide that you want it to be a little bit smaller. That's great, but then so the next time you snap something, it just completely kills it. So if I snap this, now you have to reset it all up. Who wants it? I don't want to do that every time. So the snap stuff just did not work out as well as I thought. And the last thing, which is probably the I said originally that I thought the video was the biggest challenge, but actually it's meetings, screen sharing with colleagues, doing a product demo. You can't share your whole screen because no one else has. I mean, no one, but the vast majority of people are not using Ultrawide Monitor, and so you can't just share your screen. They're not going to be able to see what the heck you're showing. So you are limited to sharing just an application. If you're working with another developer, maybe you want to share your code window, then you run the code and you want to show your browser, you got to go and switch applications. And most of my clients are using Microsoft Teams, and that doesn't support sharing just an area of your monitor. I don't know if some of the other screen sharing softwares allow that. Boy, I sure do wish they would add it. If I could just share an area of my screen and make sure that any of the windows that I wanted them to see were in that area, that would be amazing. But right now, that's not possible. So when you are the one doing screen sharing, it's kind of a pain. So yeah, I guess that's my pros and cons. I love the pros being I love being able to see more code. I like not having bezels so that I can maximize certain documents for edge cases to see all the Excel columns or the entire diagram. Some of the cons being not being able to easily maximize your videos because it's going to take up the full screen, and meetings. Those are the two cons. Now, a couple of recommendations if you do decide to go with the Ultrawide Monitor. The tool I've been using to snap, they use the same term, but not the Windows snap, but the tool I've been using to set up these zones is called Fancy Zones it's part of the Power Toys suite. So I for sure would recommend. It's free downloading Power Toys and enabling Fancy Zones. It's what lets you set up these custom zones here. Maybe the Windows 11 Snap It stuff will eventually get here, but for now it's not. I originally had like a bunch of different setups here, and I was like, oh, it's going to be so great. And then it just becomes kind of tedious. No one wants to continuously switch. So I pretty much use my dev, and that's it. And then if I need a window bigger, I just drag it bigger. But you can set up these different zones, and then you can use your Windows arrow keys to go between them. So Fancy Zones I recommend. I actually just recently switched to a Trackball because there's so much real estate, and this was a problem even with 3 monitors. It's just so much real estate to cover. I needed to upgrade my mouse pad. It just wasn't big enough. But when I switched to the Trackball. It took me maybe 3 hours to get used to the Trackball, and it's actually pretty great. So, and then last is if you use the 3 monitors or one ultra-wide monitor, there's this app called LayDimmer, LEDIMMER. LayDimmer. And what it does is it slightly dims all the applications that are not the current focus, and you can control how dim they get. By default, it's actually quite a bit dimmer than this, but I reduced the opacity just a little bit, but it kind of helps. I get used to it. When it's not running, I notice it because I'm like, geez, I don't really which application has focus. I'm pressing F5. I'm running a database query instead of running my code or what have you. So I recommend LayDimmer. For the actual monitor, I have the Phillips 499 P9H. It's a 5120 by 1440 resolution. It is kind of important to pay attention. When I was researching these monitors a few years ago, I guess just over 2 years ago when I got this one, there were maybe 4 49-inch monitors on the market, and only 2 of them actually had a 5120 resolution. The others were 38 whatever. So substantially smaller smaller resolution. So you're not going to get the advantages of seeing as much code with those guys. So pay attention to that if you're looking. The Phillips have one of the biggest curves, one of the most curved of them out there. Maybe not the most, but it wasn't the worst either. And I like it. I saw a guy who has a Dell, and the curve seems almost non-existent. And when I sat at his desk, I was like, it was definitely tough to look at. So the curve, I didn't think it would actually make that big of a difference, but it does. This monitor came with a webcam. I mean, for meetings, I don't need anything fancy, so the webcam that came with it is great. The other reason I went with the Phillips is because it has the network and audio in it. So when you plug a USB-C cable in, you get network, so you don't have to use wireless or plug in your. I'm using a laptop, by the way, so it's good. I can just plug in my USB-C and I get I get my network audio. It was supposed to charge, it's supposed to do charging over USB-C, but apparently for any laptop over 12 inches or whatever, it just doesn't have enough power to actually charge your laptop. So, I was not able to make use of the charging via USB-C. I was hoping I'd plug one cable into my laptop and it'd be done, but nope. Instead, I had to plug a few. Let's see. So that's it for the monitor. Most people do reviews about gaming. I wanted to make this about software development, but if you've stuck around this long, I'll give you a gaming demo. So I like to consider myself as a pretty good gamer. So I will show you what it's like to game on this bad boy. So let's see. Let's pull up Minesweeper and let's go to town. So you can see it's crisp, it's clean, it's very responsive, very fast. You can see the entire mine that you need to sweep, and there's no scrolling, there's nothing like that. You can just see the entire thing, and you can really get some work done this way. So if you're into gaming, I definitely recommend the 49-inch ultra-wide monitor. You can see the whole game board, and you'll definitely love it. All right, I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone's time. Have a great afternoon.